For this assignment, I decided I wanted to do a different take on the traditional autobiography that students are often asked to write in school. Um, Even as a third grade teacher, one of the first things we did was we had students write about themselves. And for some kids, that can be stressful. So I decided I wanted to kind of find a different way to do that, that more kids could participate in and feel good about. And so I chose to do an autobiography. The presentation that I'm giving to you today, I chose to make something that I could share with my kids. So this is how I'm actually going to teach this to my students. I'm just going to kind of go through it with you and explain and talk a lot, and you'll get the idea. So this is where we're going to start. I plan to start by showing them this video. You might know who this fellow is, but I think a lot of students, especially high school students in my computer concepts and applications class, probably don't know who he is, but maybe they'll learn a little bit about him from watching. So here we go.
It's 11 o'clock in the morning. I've just walked in. Penny's been here since 7:30. We're going to have a fabulous day. All the clothes are here. What do you think, Penny? How's it going to go?
Yeah, Stephen, the hairdresser's arrived, so...
what are we doing, Penny?
We've got all the lights set up. We're shooting the jacket for the Rod Stewart biography.
Yeah, that's what we're doing today.
From that, after watching that video, I would kind of bring the kids together and we would talk about what we learned about this person, who, if you didn't know, is Rod Stewart. And I would ask them to tell me what they learned about him from just the watching that short clip. So some ideas that I thought they would come up with are things like he's funny, and we would talk about how do you know that he's funny, and so you could talk about how the first thing he did was make a joke about how he was showing up at 11 and his wife had to get there so much earlier, and they just kind of giggled throughout the video. So that he was stylish. There were a lot of clothes in that video and a lot of pictures of clothes, and they were nice looking clothes. So I think we could decide that he's stylish, that he's handsome. Maybe just by looking at him, some students would find that, others I'm sure not. Something I thought the kids would really probably come up with is more realistic, is something like the fact that he's old, because he's got wrinkles and whatever else. So we would talk about those things and how we learned those things. And we would, I would ask them, we learned a lot about him in a short amount of time, and how did we do that? And what I hope they would come up with is that we used our eyes. Just from looking at this picture, hopefully they'll be able to tell me, what does he do for a living? He's a singer, he's, a performer of some kind, which that wasn't part of the video, but now we can see this is him and this is what he does. From there, we would kind of move on to, using visuals and how they help. So this is a slide that says pretty much the same thing on the left as it does on the right. On the left, we have the text version of what you see on the right there. And so we would kind of have a discussion about, if you're not there are people out there who just aren't the greatest readers, but if you really want to make sure they get your ideas, it's a great way to do that is to have support from a visual. So just by looking at this, you could see obviously that Mrs. Osmond's favorite fruit is dessert. You can also read about that. Either way, it's just kind of a visual to show them about visuals and how they will help. And so then from there, we're going to talk about, what is it we're going to do? And so I want to find out, who are you? How could we explain without writing a big long book who we are? And so there we'll go into the kind of the discussion of visuals and pictures and photos and graphs and charts and things like that we can use to explain ourselves. Obviously, now on to the assignment. They're going to find out. This is what I want them to do. They're going to create a magazine all about you, talking about their interests, their hobbies, what they want out of life, those kinds of things. This is an example of one that they'll see later on, but it's just uh, all created in Google Docs, which they already know how to use. So we will talk about the assignment itself. They'll get a copy of this page on the right to use as they're working through their project, but this is just a more detailed description of what they need to do. There's only 3 things everybody has to do: have a cover, a table of contents, and a back cover. But the rest, the inside, is more up to the student. If you don't have a pet, you're not going to make a pets page. So there are some choices in there for the kids, and of course, I'm open to whatever ideas they have as well. We'll talk about the requirements, the visual part. Obviously, they need to add the pictures, the charts, the graphs, those kinds of things. But then to go along with that, the Google Docs side, the formatting and those kinds of things. We'll talk about all those things that have to be included in their magazine. So here again, I just kind of put it all here for the kids to have their task if they click here. Everything's outlined for them again, the page I just showed you. Then, of course, there are some suggestions, some ways to make it, for them to make things easier, some checklists that they can use to make sure they did what they needed to do. And then, of course, the rubric. The rubric is important, I think. I always try to give a rubric before early on in a project, so students know what to expect and what I'm expecting, and how to make sure they did everything. So that'll be part of their pieces to use. And then the last thing I have here, I feel like I'm rushing, is an example that they can look at. It's an example that I made for myself that shows them, just how this is all done with Google Docs. Everything is Google Docs. I have, it looks a lot like a magazine. They will have magazines to look at, just for formatting, using tables to help them format, and using Google Drawing to organize pictures so that they're easy to read. Headings and subheadings, those kinds of things are important. So, there is text. It's not a lot of text. So I try to use a lot of pictures, try to use a lot of different things to show them. And then at the end, we would talk, what did they learn about me? They probably learned I'm a family person. They learned I like to cook. I like to take walks. I do lots of sports because I'm always at a game of some kind. And I drive a Camaro, which they already find pretty funny that I do. So this is just, I just thought this would be good for them to, oops, sorry. I'm sorry. Good way for them to talk about themselves in a way they're more comfortable with. I think they've got lots of pictures on their phones that they want to share, and this is just a way they can do it and still tell us about themselves. So that is it.